willkommen zu einer neuen Folge im Cheftreff Podcast, and I'm going to switch to English because I'm still in Vietnam, in Saigon or Ho Chi Minh City, and I have the pleasure of interviewing one of the speakers from the NFQ Summer 2025 here, and I just recently met him, and I think he has a great story to tell, and also he runs a really cool business, and I'm very excited to have a little chat with Aric. Welcome.
Thank you very much. Exciting to be here.
Yeah, you have actually like some German ties, right? So
I do. I was born actually in Europe, in Spain, but when I was only a few months old, I moved to Munich, Germany.
yeah,
And that's where
best town.
the best. It's let's say it's the most beautiful town in
Yeah.
Germany, for sure, right?
Yeah.
But I moved there, and then I was there till I was 14 years old.
Okay.
And then I went back in 2007 and did some stuff. So I did some math the other day. I've spent more years of my life in Germany than anywhere else.
Yeah.
Exactly.
And so we meet up in Vietnam, which is
Exactly.
a very interesting story. I think your story is pretty interesting because actually you've been working a lot in Germany. You've been
Yes.
doing stuff in the United States, and at a certain point in time, you decided to go to Asia. I mean, maybe just take us a bit along.
Yeah, I mean, it's so I've always said that if you're born and raised overseas, it stays in your blood. It fundamentally changes who you are as a person. So when I moved back to the States when I was 14, my parents separated. I went to high school and university there, but something was always in the back of my head. Okay, I got to move on. I got to move on, right? So I looked at different things. I taught English in Japan. I lived in Australia. Then I studied in the Netherlands. So that was already starting it. And then I was sort of between Europe and the United States. I had a career there. I worked in media for a long time. And then my brother was working in Southeast Asia. So I visited him a few times when I was in Europe. And that sort of piqued my interest in Asia. It's like, okay, wow, there's another world out there. And so that was sort of the genesis. That sort of started my interest. And then at some point in time, I said, okay, Aric, when the timing is right, I've got to be there as well. So that's sort of how it all came together.
Yeah. When did you move then?
So I moved here after having visited a lot, 2000 to Vietnam 2018 from Berlin.
All right.
Yeah.
So, and you've been in digital marketing? Like
Yeah, so I started in media before it was digital. So I worked at MTV Europe, which was a great experience back when MTV was still cool.
Yeah.
Late 90s, right? And then I moved into the online advertising, online marketing, and my two startups in Germany were in that space, in the media space, advertising space. And I did that for quite a while. Why did I get out of it? I mean, I'd been doing it for a long time, but there was also a real change. When I was doing it, it was still very early. It was very exciting. Digital advertising was very creative. It was cool. You were doing all kinds of cool stuff online. And then what happened is over the years, it really changed. So you would go to the ad agency and they would say, okay, we're spending 80% of our budget on Google and Facebook, and we have a little bit left. What can you do for us? And it was like, it wasn't as exciting anymore. So I was like, okay, good timing. I had just exited. Let's go to Asia and look for something completely new.
Yeah. And then you found My Storage, which is
exactly. And that's like,
completely different.
Totally. It's like, whoa, right? I mean, I said this in my presentation yesterday or the day before. If someone had said you're going to be doing storage in Vietnam 10 years ago, like, what are you talking about, right? But when I came over here, it really was, as you've seen being here, it's a land of opportunity.
Yeah.
Right. The energy. Everyone's an entrepreneur. Everyone's doing something. Street stalls everywhere. Just doing, machen, tun, and so on. And that stimulated me. So I said, okay, I want to be a part of that, but I have no idea what I'm going to do. So when I came over here in 2018, it was an open book. I knew there's opportunity. I've got the entrepreneurial background, the startup background. As a matter of fact, when I started into storage, a lot of people were like, that's really weird. Why? I don't get it. And I said, to be honest with you, if you start a business, if you're an entrepreneur, unless it's something like high tech or, very, very specific, 80% of the skill set can be transferred from one sector to another.
Yeah,
the startup skill set is 80%. 20% is the skill set or the knowledge from that sector. So that's what I was bringing along. And the self-storage thing, I can tell you how that happened, but that was sort of the thinking or the logic behind.
Yeah, I can totally relate, and I think it's even more, maybe it's also 90%, but like give or take. But I think the missing 10 to 20%, you can either learn,
Exactly.
or relearn, or
Exactly.
you can hire.
Exactly.
Right.
Exactly. That's
So-
exactly right. And storage isn't rocket science,
Mhm.
right? It's pretty basic. As
It's
an
pretty big in the United States.
It's,
right?
I was just going to say, as an American, we're all self-storage customers.
Yeah.
Everyone. So everyone knows it, and that's sort of how I discovered it as well. I was moving from Berlin. I needed a storage while I was moving back and forth. I spoke to the Airbnb hostess, and she looked at me like, I have no clue. I don't know how to help you. And so that was sort of that moment where I said, I have to research this. This is interesting. I know self-storage, of course. And then I started looking, and in the surrounding countries, in Thailand, in Malaysia, and Philippines, it already existed. And those economies are ahead of Vietnam. Hong Kong, Singapore, even more developed. It exists it's more mature.
Mm-hmm.
And so to me, it was pretty clear. It was like, okay, it's going to be coming to Vietnam.
Yeah. So what's the rule of thumb? Like a growing economy is like more consumption. You buy more stuff. You have to store more stuff.
That's pretty much it.
Yeah.
That's really it. So you look, there were sort of these macroeconomic factors:
Yeah.
GDP per capita, urbanization rates, those type of factors that indicate, okay, a population, they're moving into the city, small apartments, they're buying more stuff. So that's a formula for needing storage, right? And here, unlike in the West, you don't have a storage room in the basement, you don't have closets in your apartment, so you just don't have space. And it's sort of a universal need. I've always said everyone needs storage at some point in their life. You've got event-based storage. I'm renovating. I'm going to be out of town. My business shuts down. And then you've got lifestyle storage. I just want less clutter in my home, right? I've got all this crap that I don't need every day, so let's put it into storage so I have a nicer space. So I saw this inevitability where Vietnam is going to go the same direction as everyone else. And I actually call it the IKEA, McDonald's, Starbucks paradigm. Not a matter of if, but when those companies enter a market, right? And I put storage sort of in that same category.
Okay, at least like you have a very bold peer group, like when it comes to like business success.
Yeah.
So where are you standing at the moment? You started right away, 2018?
No, not right away. So we opened our doors about 5 years ago, a little over 5 years ago. So right before COVID.
Yeah. Okay.
So
that was a good time or a bad time?
You know what? For storage, it was a good time.
Yeah.
I looked at a lot of different sectors. I'm really happy I didn't go into F&B, right?
Yeah.
That was, thank God, right? But storage was really interesting, and this also proved one of the things that I had read about self-storage: extremely resilient, no matter what the economy is like. So when the economy goes down, for whatever reason, in this case COVID, businesses close. They have to put their expensive ovens or their massage chairs or whatever, where do you put them? It was really unique to COVID, I guess. Vietnam locked down for 2 years. You couldn't come back, right? We had a lot of families, they were locked out of the country, and they had all their stuff here, and they were paying, whatever, $2,000 a month rent, and they couldn't come back. And they would contact us, and we would go in. It was like from one of these zombie movies, Apocalypse, where everything had been left just like it was, they had fled. And so we went in and we went through their stuff. We did video calls with them, and we packed things into boxes, and then we put it away into storage. And then when they came back in May of 22, they could finally get their stuff. Okay. So endless stories like that during COVID, when our business just continued to grow to help people out in hard times.
Yeah. Lars recommended you to me because he said, he's been on Shark Tank Vietnam. So, and how was that? That's like Höhle der Löwen in Germany. The original format is Shark Tank, right?
Yeah.
And that was in Vietnamese, right?
It was mixed.
Okay.
It was mixed. So I've always been a big Shark Tank fan. Shark Tank USA with Mark Cuban and the whole gang. So always watched it. I remember in Germany, I was always excited to be able to download it on iTunes and watch it and so on. And I'll never forget, I was sitting at home and they approached me. So they said, hey, at first I didn't even understand them. Hey, we're from blah, blah, blah. And I said, could you repeat that? And Shark Tank, yeah, of course, I'd be happy to. And we went in there and we did sort of a little audition, and then they called us back and said, we'd like to have you on. And then, in the run-up, it was all a little bit, let's say, chaotic, which is, sometimes the case here in Vietnam, but usually you get there in the end. It was a big, big sort of warehouse with a stage set up in the middle outside of town. And, a million changes last minute and all that type of stuff. But one thing I really wanted to do was do it in Vietnamese, or at least my pitch in Vietnamese, right? And so I worked on that. I actually memorized it because it was difficult. Vietnamese is a very, very, very difficult language, right? Extremely difficult. And so I said, okay, I have to commit to this. I have to memorize it. So I worked very hard with my teacher to get there. I was sweating bullets because I thought to myself, I'm going to get on stage and I'm just going to forget the Vietnamese. I really was. I was completely nervous. But I got through it, thankfully, and they had actually headphones. So if you watch the video, you can watch the video on YouTube. I think you have to use a Vietnamese VPN. I don't think you can see it from overseas. On a side note, that's actually a very interesting thing from a media standpoint. I noticed, if you watch things like Shark Tank or Höhle der Löwen or things like that in the West, and you want to watch it online, it's sort of walled off. You have to pay for it, right? You have to access it. They have a very different perspective on distribution here. They immediately put it on YouTube and everyone can watch it. So here the focus is really getting it out there, which is really good for us, right? Because it really got it out there and everyone watched it. So I thought that was interesting. So yeah, if anyone wants to watch it, it's right out there on YouTube. And so, I got up there and did my spiel. We had the headphones where I could hear simultaneous translation. So they would speak Vietnamese, I would hear English, and vice versa, right? Mm-hmm. So even when I spoke the Vietnamese, they could hear English. And went back and forth a little bit. And in the end, I got 3 offers, which was, obviously a good thing. Also from a perception standpoint, people out there see that we got 3 offers. Yeah. In the end, though, we didn't take the offer just because some of the terms weren't where we wanted them to be. But no one knows that. In the end, I'm very happy with the decision we made. But from a perspective of being on the show and publicity and to this day, I'm walking down the street or connect with someone on LinkedIn. Oh yeah, I know you from Shark Tank. That's it. So
any direct business effect?
Absolutely, absolutely. Yeah, we got a lot of press. People were aware of it because you're not going to be able to get press for self-storage if you open a self-storage facility in the States. Yeah. Who cares? But here it's a new concept, right? So people are definitely interested in coming and they look around, wow, this is really interesting. I've never seen this before. If people say to us right now, what's your biggest challenge? It's the same as it was 5 years ago, and it's going to be the same in 5 years, awareness, right? The need is definitely there. If we get more awareness, the demand will come with it, right? I hear stories like, God, I wish I had known you were here. Last time I renovated my apartment, I rented a hotel room for my furniture. So you hear stories like that, right? So it's really getting that out. So Shark Tank helped with that, for sure. For sure.
But it's also, I think, that you have to awareness and then change people's behavior as well, right? Because they do it the old way and not do it.
They do it the old way. So you change people's behavior. I mean, awareness is the first step. Mm-hmm. And then, convincing them, or not even really convincing, but showing them how they can have a better life, how they can save money. So when it comes to advertising, in the West, you'll have 80% of your budget going to search. Mm-hmm. Here, it'll be 20% going to search and 80% going to sort of education and branding and teaching people and helping them understand that we're a solution that's going to make their life better, they have less clutter in their home, or just from an economic standpoint, right? Right now, we're down in the central business district, right? Mm-hmm. So what I pay here for a square meter, and if I use that for storage, for my documents or my marketing materials or my inventory, that's quite wasteful compared to giving it to us and using it as an office, right? So making economic arguments like that works.
Okay. Is there like a typical customer, or do you see all
You know,
kinds of use
I
cases?
like that question because no, right? And that's actually one of the strengths of self-storage is the the use cases, the types of customers. It's so broad that we're also not exposed to one particular sector, right? To F&B or insurance or whatever, right? Everyone somehow needs storage at one point in their lives. There's something funny called the 4Ds of self-storage, right? Death, dislocation, downsizing, divorce. That's right. And when those things happen, right? People and so those things happen here too, right? So maybe instead of a microwave oven, they'll store the rice cooker, but it's the same dynamics going on, right? So that's when we're there. I mean, in a quote unquote sad way, we're there in the good and bad times, right? When you have too much stuff, we're there. But also, if your grandmother dies and she has a bunch of stuff, we're there, right? So it's and that's what makes the business extremely resilient. So we're there in good times and bad times. It's a very, very broad customer base, and it's also very sticky. You know, people put their stuff in, and then they don't want to bother with it.
Yeah, it's a bit like a subscription, like for a magazine. That you,
Exactly,
you
exactly.
don't get the receipt every now and
And
then.
this is and stopping a subscription is a lot easier than getting all of your stuff out of storage and what am I going to do with it? Now where am I going to put it? I have to give it away. I have to sell it. Oh God, that's just a headache. I'd rather just pay the bill every month and just leave it, right? So that's an
So you're
advantage.
5 years in the game now.
Yeah.
What's next? What are the barriers to growth for you?
Right now we
Where
are.
is your business standing?
Yeah, so we're doing well. It's there's an article in Forbes magazine in October of last year, and it said it talked about 5 unsexy businesses with sexy profits. Who was number one? What was number one? Self-storage. Actually, true. Look it up, and you'll see the list. I think number 2 was old folks' homes or something like that. So we are one of these businesses that just grows boringly, so to speak. So the last couple of years, it's been 30% each year. And we are now talking to institutional investors, or have several conversations going on, where they say, okay, look, we get it. This makes sense. You've got a track record. It's a proven business model, right? Let's now make it Ho Chi Minh City and Vietnam wide. Take it to the next level. Establish our first mover status. More locations around Ho Chi Minh City. It's really important to have lots of locations. We have one big flagship, but in a city the size of Ho Chi Minh, it's huge, right? Geographically, the infrastructure is lacking. People don't have cars, so you need to be closer to the people. So a lot more facilities in Vietnam, and then ultimately our vision is, the Mekong region. So going over to Cambodia and places like that.
Okay, and I mean, I don't know, but what is the barrier to growth? Is it?
It's a capital-intensive business.
Okay,
so,
you need the money to invest.
Yeah.
And also,
So
you find out the properties.
yeah. So some people, some investors are not excited about it because of the capital requirements, right? But once you build a facility, it's extremely attractive because the running costs are negligible, right? You build this facility. We lease property. We don't buy property. That's prohibitive here. But even just you have fixed rent, and that's about it, right? So you get a facility to about 1/3 full. You have your break even, and the rest is just gravy, right? It's really, really profitable once you get to scale. So really, the limiting factor is building more sites, right? Getting more facilities out there, and then growing that awareness or growing the demand, as we say, right? One thing that we do, however, because if you sort of distill it down, storage is just putting stuff in a box, right? That's the core. So it's easy to copy the basics. So we have competitors, we have low-cost Vietnam self-storage companies and so on, but getting all of the stuff around the core product to sort of a Western standard of service. So you come to our facility, it's absolutely immaculate, everything's clean. because it's new here, you want to give people comfort and confidence that, okay, if I give you my stuff, I feel good about it, right? I've always argued, I said, after going to the doctor, this is a very intimate transaction because I don't know you, right? And you're asking me to take care of your stuff and get it back to you in the same condition, not moldy or floods or whatever. So when you come to our facility, unlike most of the others, it's like a nice Western hotel from a quality standpoint, right? Everything's super clean. We have a nice working office. We have a beautiful workspace where customers can come sit and hang out with snacks and coffee. Everything is totally clean. We have dehumidifiers.
You want to be close to your stuff.
If you want to hang out with your stuff, you can hang out with your stuff. That's right. You're not allowed to sleep. We have signs up, no sleeping, because people might try that here. So that's really, really important to differentiate ourselves. And we're very, very, very tech forward as well, which is also a differentiator. In other words, you can book online, which most places don't allow you to do. We're building a customer portal where people have photographs of, or let's say thumbnails of things that they have in storage. And we can deliver things back just by the click of a mouse. So you go to your customer portal, you click on the bicycle, deliver it to me on Friday, and then pick it up on Sunday. So really doing things, again, to help differentiate and also to make us it easier to scale and get bigger quickly.
Okay, so what I've learned is last year also in China is that it's a big thing about live streaming. Is there like an idea to have a live stream of your stuff, which is not moving, but I don't know. It's a bit like monitoring your house, right?
That's funny that you asked. So, do you know Dodo Pizza?
Yeah. But
okay, so Dodo Pizza is known for their tech. That's their sort of putting tech on top of pizza production. And one of the things I read is that they have, you can live stream their kitchen to see how clean it is and all that. And we discussed that. I said, but what can you live stream? Because you can't live stream the public areas because the customers won't want to be seen. But live streaming a storage room is damn boring. Right? Let's watch that. So we were trying to come up with something like that. We are super transparent. For example, if you go to our website, you'll see live the temperature in our storage facility. And we were actually trying to come up with something similar to that, where we could say, hey, how can we show what's going on or be more transparent? But we haven't come up with that idea yet.
Yeah, I was just maybe even because it's so way off and so weird that maybe people actually would buy for the service to have a camera in the room watching their storage, sitting there. I don't know.
We talked about
things
that
on social media. I don't know.
We talked about that, but what we did, but it didn't work out, and that we like trying lots of different things, and some work and some don't. Here's something that didn't work, is we took one of the storage rooms and turned it into a streaming room. So let's say you're someone who sells your stuff on social, right? Yeah. And that's very common here, right? Yeah. Much more common than it is in the West. People selling things on TikTok or whatever. So people could store whatever they're selling at our facility, and then they could go to the streaming room at our facility and do their live streaming sales and da-da-da. That didn't work out for whatever reason, right? We had one customer trying that out, so we shut that down. But we always try new ideas and push and stuff. And our latest one we're super excited about. I just posted about it on LinkedIn, I think this week, as we are just opened our first, Vietnam's first wine storage facility.
So I bring my bottle selection to your place.
That's right. You bring the bottles. It's down. It's always between 12 to 15 degrees, 60% humidity. So where wine should be, and that was also sort of like the very beginning. Nice. I went. So we belong to what's called the Self-Storage Association of Asia. We have events every year, different cities. And the first day of the event is always going to other facilities in that city. And it's been in Singapore, Hong Kong, and Shanghai. Every one of these facilities, everyone had wine storage as well. So that was sort of that trigger where I said, okay, well, if it works here, why won't it work in Ho Chi Minh? Let's do it. So we did some research. The search volume for wine storage here is negligible. It's nothing. But I'm convinced that people just need to find out about us and so on, and that'll grow just like our traditional self-storage.
Compared to, because I've just done the route to from Thailand to Vietnam, and Thailand seems to be like 10, 15 years ahead.
Yeah,
Okay,
yeah.
different history also of the country because never been occupied, never been
Yeah.
attacked. So it's
Yeah.
like always been affluent and
Yeah,
rich and so. But when it comes to storage, is Thailand more advanced?
Oh,
or
way
what?
ahead,
Yeah?
way ahead. You look around in Bangkok, and there's these massive storage facilities, and there are several operators. Even if you when you go to Bangkok next, if you go next week, if you take the train or the highway on the route from the airport, if you look to the left, there's a big red building called Red Self Storage, REDD. Massive, massive, massive. There's nothing like that here yet. And there are like 3 or 4 operators in Bangkok. And that was one of those things where I said, okay, just like you said, 15 or 20 years ahead, right? So that's exactly where Ho Chi Minh will be in 15 or 20 years. Several big operators, including ourselves.
So the sky is blue and you go like shoot for the moon. So what are the next steps for you guys?
I mean, next steps is really, from a self-storage or my storage standpoint, really is, boom, let's make that footprint here in Ho Chi Minh City bigger, and keep growing. And then, after, I'd say, to me, it's inevitable that one of the big players, like Extra Space and StoreHub, they're probably there's definitely 2 of the biggest ones here in Southeast Asia. They're out of Singapore. The reason they have not yet come to Vietnam, in my opinion, is the fact that you can't buy property here. It's very difficult to buy property. Self-storage is traditionally, if you go to the West, a property play. So they buy the property and then the self-storage is almost by the way. But because it's so difficult to buy property here in Vietnam, they've sort of shied away from it, and it's still an emerging market. But at some point, Vietnam is just going to be too big to ignore for these players. Yeah. There are ways to buy property here, but it's more difficult. But so in my estimation, so they will at some point come in and say, okay, we need to be in Vietnam. We'll figure out the property thing. Hey, look at my storage. They're here. Let's work with them rather than start from scratch.
But so, which means that actually when I translate that you have like a window of, I don't know, 3 to 5 years.
That's sort of how we're looking at it. Yeah, that will have been 10 years for me, which is sort of a good ride, so to speak, and then that would, I'd say, would be the ideal plan. But let's see what comes.
Yeah. Okay. Maybe, I mean, because we can actually then also zoom out and benefit from your entrepreneurial journey and your experience here. Is like, what can you give any tips or recommendations like for people who want to set up shop here?
Yeah.
It's like, or what do you have to really consider before making a move like this?
Yeah, I mean that's sort of what I talked about 2 days ago, right? In my presentation, what are some of the key things to consider? I mean, so the most difficult part is actually doing it. I'll assume that you're going to do it, right? Because most people don't even bother because, oh my gosh, Vietnam, it's scary. What do I do if it fails? Blah, 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 right? But if you get past all that and you decide to come out here and do it, my recommendations are a couple of things. Is number one, don't jump into anything too fast. Take a year to smell the roses and look around and get to know the culture and feeling. And while you're doing that, try to find 1 or 2 people, I had 2, who you can really trust, who come recommended or you got them to know, who sort of accompany you in those first days, because you're not local, you don't understand the language, you don't know how to navigate. Yeah. So you need that. I made a couple of mistakes in the beginning because I didn't have the right people with me. So make sure you take your time, get the right people who accompany you on the beginning stages of your journey, and then you can build the team around that. That's your core team. And then also, it's very difficult. Here it's a lot about relationships and finding your way. One of the little things I talked about was relationships is more important than contracts, in other words. So these types of things take time, and you want to sort of build your brand and get to know people and all that. So a quick exit is, I think, much more difficult or unrealistic here. You should be in it for the long haul. When I say long haul, like 10 years, not like come in, exit in 3 or 4 years and out. I think that's sort of unrealistic unless you're lucky. I wouldn't plan on that. So I'd say those are some of the key steps in terms of building the business and getting to where you want.
I think the Chinese. Thanks for sharing. I mean,
Yeah, of course.
And I think the Chinese, they call it guangxi. Like it's like the network you have to build. Like if you have the connection, and it's usually, I mean, always based on personal relationship.
Yeah.
That's what what I like about also this whole region is that it's that's why food is so important. And you sit down at the dinner table.
Yeah, it's a big part of it.
You share food and you get to know each other. And you have to do that many times to build quality or to actually and that people start trusting you and so on. I think it's a great concept.
Yeah, it is.
Because the food is so great. So
yeah, Vietnamese food is delicious, but yeah, that's a big part of it is the relationships. We were also very fortunate to have a partner. The company is called Tantan, and they're a landlord where we are now, and they've also helped us build our facility out of containers. And they are they've been around for 30 years. If you think of Maersk containers, it's sort of a Maersk of Vietnam.
right.
So every Vietnamese knows their logo and the name, and so they are very close to us, and they've helped us so much. So if you can get a partner like that who knows their way around, who knows top level people in the government, and who can sort of clear the path for you in ways. We found them, or they found us. We were very fortunate about 2 years in, and they have also been invaluable in terms of supporting our growth. So a local partner, very valuable.
Yeah, and I think even more because like one of the 3 pillars I think I built anything in my life is relationships and meaningful relationships or AKA networking. But I think this goes beyond or goes deeper. It's because you have to build the connection and relationship. It's not like knowing 5,000 people.
Yeah.
And as you said, it takes time, but it's also, and that's what I really like recommend to anyone out there who is in a leadership position or is an entrepreneur. Of course, you have to build your career. You have to work on your company. But it's also you have to really build your network, and that's why I'm actually here. Yeah. I don't have like a real mission. So like, what is this? Is this beneficial for what I do with K5? Is indirectly, but for me as an entrepreneur, it's invaluable. It's like it's so crazy to sit down with you now and learn your journey and hanging out at the bar with this guy and these girls and so on. So it's really, really cool. So I just want to encourage everyone, here or in the States or in Europe or Germany back home, to really go out and meet people.
I mean, I couldn't agree with that more. I had a girl contact me 2 or 3 days ago. She says, "Hey Aric, I've been following you on what you've been doing. I just moved here from Canada." She looks like she's a Vietnamese background. I saw her image on LinkedIn, but I just moved here. I think it's really cool what you're doing. I'm really excited to get started in something. Would you mind if we had a cup of coffee? And when people contact me for that, I always say yes, because I know I was in that boat.
Yeah.
And I know how important it is for people to connect and get out there, and it's like a snowball, right? I'll introduce you to this person, I'll introduce you to that person, and so getting that snowball, so to speak, rolling is just absolutely critical for success. And just like you described, you never know whom you're going to meet or whom they're going to connect you to that might be your next big opportunity or business deal or cooperation, or you just don't know.
Yeah.
You just don't know. So that's what makes it fun.
Yeah. Stay open with your mind and your heart. So I mean, like if someone wants to reach out, you are on LinkedIn very active.
My name is spelled with an A-R-I-C. Last name Austin, A-U-S-T-I-N. So it's very easy to find me because of that, right? So if anyone wants to chat, ask questions, feel free to tap on my shoulder on LinkedIn, and I'm the type of person who generally responds on LinkedIn. If someone writes me, if it's just a connection request without writing, then I'll just wait for a message. But if someone reaches out, I'll say, hey, I'm happy to talk and things like that.
Yeah, great. So just like the final question always here is like, if you could go back in time, and you to like say like to a spot in 2018, and you could tell your younger self or share with your younger self an experience you had over the last 7 years, which is not about avoiding mistakes or picking the right stock,
Right.
but it's like bit changing the quality of your decisions or the flavor. Is there anything you would have liked to have known like in 2018? Anything comes up?
In terms of
whatever, life or business?
Yeah. I'm just thinking, what would I have thought, when I got here to Vietnam, and how would I have changed sort of my approach or the way of thinking and things like that. That's a good question, because
I know, but when I look back, it's always like I've always felt like this is what I tell. I would have told my younger self like to double down on my own ability, because you always feel like, oh, the other people know so much, they're much smarter, they're more mature, and then you learn that, well, but you're bright candle on the cake. So just trust more in my abilities. Wouldn't have changed much, I guess, but it's, I don't know.
What I think that's a great thought or a great note. It reminds me a lot of, LinkedIn has become such a thing in the last 5, 6, 8 years, right? It's almost like you have to be on it.
Yeah.
And I think it takes a long time to understand, it goes in the direction of what you talked about. When you first get onto LinkedIn, you're comparing yourself to all these amazing winners. Because people post on LinkedIn how great they are, right? And so coming in immediately and saying, you know what, I'm pretty successful, and confident, and not sort of second guess and doubt and look at this person and think to you know what I mean? I think when you get here, you're full of fear. Don't be full of that fear. Just sort of, power through and not worry about the mistakes and all that. I mean, day before yesterday, I had a slide and it was like, would I do it again? It sort of goes in that direction, right? And there were, of course, moments of doubt. It's not a sexy business. We have physical buildings, which are totally different dynamic versus having something virtual, but then they're also positive. So when I have those, looking back and saying, okay, just people are going to make mistakes. Don't doubt it. Just keep going. Don't compare yourself to others. I'd say maybe that's a perspective I could have had more strongly back 7 years ago.
Yeah. Great, thank you.
Sure.
Cool. Aric, so thank you so much for taking
Pleasure
the
being
time.
here. Really nice meeting you as well. So thanks for your time.
And I keep my fingers crossed that everything turns out in the way you want it to turn out. I think most probably it won't turn out the same exactly as planned.
That for sure.
But
as successful as I hope, that's the key, right?
Grasp the potential.
However we get there. And I wish you great travels here in Asia. Continue exploring and enjoying Vietnam. And I'm sure we'll cross paths again at some point.
I will come back for sure.
Good.
That's a given.
Good to hear.
Thanks.
All right. Thank you so much. Take care.
So here we are at the end of our great podcast with Aric Austin from MyStorage.Asia, right? That's
right.
That's the one.
That's right.
And I'm super happy that we had the opportunity to speak with someone who actually made it here and built a business and is thriving. And as I said, hit him up if you want to, maybe understand how to set up shop in Vietnam. Thank you, Aric.
Thank you very much. Anytime, just get in touch.